welcome to our Tech Talk, Migrating Workloads to XenServer. Today, we're joined by Chris Edwards, Lead Product Marketing Manager at XenServer, and also Brian Deere, Solutions Architect at Ferroque Systems. Chris Edwards has nearly 20 years of experience in the EUC space and has been at Citrix for 12 years across technical, sales, and product marketing roles. Prior to Citrix, Chris deployed a 2,000-user Citrix environment on XenServer and worked for multiple MSPs and desktop-as-a-service providers. At Citrix, Chris was part of the image automation team for Citrix's internal deployment of Citrix. Brian embarked on his IT career in 2000, starting with government support for Intel platforms within a Microsoft environment. His journey in IT evolved as he ventured into independent Citrix consulting, honing his skills and expertise in virtual environments. In 2012, Brian joined Citrix as a senior consultant and later served as a field architect, specializing in design and builds for cloud and virtualization solutions, particularly focusing on XenServer. Today, Brian is a solutions architect and sales engineer. His extensive experience in cloud technologies and virtualization has made him a cornerstone in driving innovative solutions at Ferroque Systems. Welcome, gentlemen. Embarking on a hypervisor migration can seem overwhelming, particularly if you're uncertain about where to start. During this session, Chris and Brian will explain the strategic benefits of switching to XenServer and guide you through the essential steps needed to migrate your Citrix environments from VMware. They will delve into a variety of tailored migration scenarios, covering provisioning methods such as MCS non-persistent, MCS persistent, PVS non-persistent, and dedicated virtual desktop agents, not managed by Citrix's image management tools. Additionally, our speakers will highlight the specific advantages of XenServer, including significant cost reductions and improved system performance. They'll also address potential challenges during the migration process and provide expert solutions to ensure a smooth transition. This comprehensive webinar is crucial for anyone looking to enhance their virtualization strategy while reducing operational costs. You'll gain valuable insights and the confidence needed to successfully transition your operations to XenServer, making the migration process as straightforward and effective as possible. Today, we'll begin by understanding XenServer and why it's a beneficial platform for your Citrix workloads. We'll then explore various migration options and tools that facilitate a smooth transition. Our discussion will cover different migration scenarios and will highlight important considerations to keep in mind during the migration process. To conclude, we'll open the floor for a roundtable discussion. So should you have any questions along the way, please feel free to add them to the chat. I'm going to hand things over to Brian and Chris. Take it away.
Awesome, thanks, Amber. So before we get into migrating from VMware to XenServer, why XenServer? Why choose XenServer? Why would you want to choose XenServer for running your Citrix workloads? And one of the kind of obvious reasons is cost savings, with XenServer historically being a free entitlement of Citrix. And obviously there's some recent price increases from other vendors and uncertainty of future prices. But on top of that, customers that deploy XenServer for the first time and start working with it for the first time, a lot of time they're surprised on the simplicity of XenServer as kind of this added surprise benefit. And additionally, XenServer being part of the same company of Citrix, we have multiple Citrix optimizations that are unique to XenServer, which we'll cover. And then historically, graphic acceleration was another reason customers would choose XenServer, with XenServer being the first hypervisor to bring vGPU capabilities to market. So who are XenServer customers, right? Obviously with XenServer being the same company as Citrix, right? It's used to run a lot of Citrix workloads, and the largest enterprise customer that we know of is running about 100,000 Citrix users. And then, we have customers across almost all verticals: healthcare, government, car manufacturers, software companies, telecoms, running tens of thousands of Citrix users on XenServer. So, and I recently had the opportunity to interview Michael Schuster and Todd Hsu from Ferroque for a blog post to learn about their experience with XenServer consulting. And they conservatively estimate that they have saved customers over $50 million over the past 10 plus years on VMware renewal costs. And that's kind of the inflated price by migrating customer Citrix workloads to XenServer, right? And some of the highlights from that blog post, which we'll share when the webinar is over, include a 40,000 user healthcare Citrix customer that they're doing a migration project for. And then they have various organizations, a telecom company with 5K users, an auto insurance company with 5K users, as well as many other customers over their 10 plus years in consulting on XenServer. So when we talk to customers that are new to XenServer, right, a lot of times we hear, what's the difference between vCenter and XenCenter, right? Because they sound the same, but it can be confusing because they're very different things, right? So XenServer doesn't have a centralized management layer that you might be used to with vCenter. So if we look at it on the left, this is kind of what a typical VMware environment might look like. From a high level, you're going to have your database, which you might want in a cluster, and then you have your vCenter servers, which you probably want more than one of, and then you have your ESXi hosts, right? And then the vSphere client for your admin tasks. On the right, we have the architecture of what XenServer looks like, where the equivalent of the vCenter database and the vCenter servers that doesn't exist, right? It's essentially built into the XenServer hosts, right? And then the XenCenter client is just more like the vSphere client. So the XenServer hosts, they all communicate with and through the pool coordinator, and they all essentially hold a copy of the configuration database. So there's no additional database or management layer to install, upgrade, or manage. So this is what makes VMware kind of more of a complex platform to install, deploy, and manage, and this is foundationally how XenServer is built for simplicity. So XenServer 8 was released earlier this year in Q1, and some of the new notable features and capabilities include support for Windows 11 VMs. We released the first ever supported Terraform provider, which is available for download on GitHub. We added some net new monitoring capabilities with SNMP and Nagios capabilities. We doubled the max vCPU for VMs from 32 to 64. We released PVS teleportation, which makes it easier to migrate the PVS vDisks from VMware to XenServer by a VHDX import. PVS Accelerator is now built in instead of being a supplemental download as it was in the past. And then a few other improvements with XenCenter Conversion Manager. Now you can import 10 VMs at a time. In the past, it was limited to 1. And then we have some additional GFS improvements, including MCS full cloning capabilities. We also drastically changed how we deliver updates with automated updates and our new kind of release stream. I'll talk about that on a few more slides. And then with XenServer 8, we also released a trial edition that we didn't have in the past, which lets you try out XenServer, the premium editions of XenServer with up to 3 hosts in a resource pool. And XenServer 8 comes with support through November of 2028. So as I mentioned with XenServer 8, we drastically changed the way that we're delivering updates. This is both kind of from an engineering process as well as the admin experience in the UI. So as part of this, we're moving away from the previous kind of LTSR plus CR release strategy. So now you can just think of XenServer 8 as the LTSR, as I mentioned, with support through November of 2028. And then you consume the hot fixes, the updates, the new features through this new update release stream and automated updates, as it's called in the UI. So how this would work is, in the past, you would pick and choose what hot fixes you wanted, kind of in between the CRs. And internally, we really had no way of testing all the different combinations and orders of installation, right? If you think about it, it's kind of millions of permutations. And just with our engineering process, we were on a quarterly release cadence at best for new features. And then for the admin experience, in the installation process, there were really limited details on what it was that you were installing and very generic guidance on, what the impact to your environment was going to be, right? So we changed all this with XenServer 8, again, from both the engineering process as well as the admin experience. So XenServer 8 uses a new update delivery model. We have a continuous update stream that you consume. It's your choice when to consume it. And that stack is a fully tested stream of updates. So this new process allows us to deliver small changes, smaller features. It allows us to roll out new features kind of much more quicker than we previously could. And we now have a release cadence of roughly every 2 to 3 weeks. And in the UI, the installation process gives you much greater detail on what it is that you're installing and clear guidance on what the impact of the update will be specific to your environment. And we did a blog post on this recently, as well as a demo video. So we'll send that out with the resources after the webinar so you can see it in action. And then, of course, automated updates, it integrates with our existing live patching and rolling pool upgrades capabilities, which we've had for years. So live patching is where most or some updates won't require a reboot. And rolling pool upgrade is where if the hosts do require a reboot, it will evacuate the VMs from each host one at a time, perform the update on the host, kind of in that rolling fashion, in order to limit or reduce downtime.
So one of the things that I think is key here is with the new way that XenServer does the updates, it is a lot more informative when you go through the console than compared to, let's say, the Citrix Hypervisor 8.2. In XenServer 8, you have that information there for an update. If it applies to a host, if it applies to a pool, but not only that, it breaks it down and what does this VM, what does this hotfix do or fix, right? As well as the post requirements on it, because it gives you a description of it, of the hotfix, and then the post if it requires rebooting the host itself or just doing the tools, right? Xen tools.
Yep. Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. Yeah. So like I said, we'll send out the resources so you can see the demo video of it in action, and then it'll make a lot more sense. So onto the Citrix optimization side, right? When it comes to Citrix, everyone really knows Citrix for its enterprise provisioning and image management capabilities. It's why people love Citrix, and it is the best way to deliver virtual desktops at scale. However, if you're using a hypervisor that is not optimized for Citrix, aka VMware, it can put heavy load on your network and heavy load on your PBS servers when using PBS, and it can put heavy load on your storage when using MCS, right? And this can result in things like boot storms, VDAs taking much longer to restart, and even machine catalogs taking much longer to complete, right? Getting less scalability out of your existing infrastructure. So I was talking with a customer recently who had this exact problem, right? They were using MCS. They updated a machine catalog over the weekend, right? As I'm sure that's, most of your guys' process is after hours and on the weekends. And then Monday, coming to the office, actually this guy was on PTO at a doctor's office and got a phone call saying, hey, there's an issue in the image, we need to roll it back. And this was a large bank, thousands of VDAs, production impacting issue. They rolled back the catalog and they could just tell that storage was pegged out, right? The storage was overloaded, and it took all day to roll back the machine catalog, right? So on the flip side, using with XenServer, we have two different optimizations, PBS Accelerator and MCS IntelliCache. There's actually a third, storage read cache, that kind of works alongside IntelliCache. So PBS Accelerator is obviously for accelerating PBS, and IntelliCache and storage read cache for optimizing MCS. So from a high level, what these do is these cache the image on the XenServer hosts instead of pulling every VM from over the network or pulling it from storage. So both, greatly optimize Citrix provisioning for both PBS and MCS and solve these problems around boot storms and overloading your infrastructure and machine catalog updates taking a long time to complete. And we've recently done a blog series and some demo videos going deeper into these technologies and showing them in action with kind of some side-by-side comparisons on the performance improvements. So we'll send out those links after the webinar as well. And onto the money saving slide, right? So this is where Citrix customers can save a lot of money, historically and moving forward with, XenServer 8 is a free entitlement of the new subscriptions listed here on the screen. The previous Citrix hypervisor, it is still an entitlement of the old Citrix licensing. And XenServer 8 is currently being offered as a free promotion for the old Citrix licenses. So there's a path to get the licenses, no matter which Citrix licenses that you're on. If you're on the old licenses, then your Citrix rep can fill out a form to get you the promotional licenses. And then if you do buy one of the new subscriptions, or if you have bought one of the new Citrix subscriptions, then the XenServer 8 licenses will automatically get added to your My Citrix account, where you can allocate and download them.
So moving on to the migration playbook. Before actually going or start discussing the tools and different scenarios or multiple scenarios when migrating, from personal experience, working with both Citrix Hypervisor 8.2 and XenServer 8, and being involved in a lot of the providing the feedback in areas that need addressing. XenServer 8 has made a lot of improvements besides the ones that were listed out by Chris in the beginning of the presentation. As far as the way it functions and stability of it, it is much more, in my opinion, much more enhanced, if you want to use the term. But anyhow, it's something to really consider. So what we're going to go through in the migration here, we're just going to cover a few different scenarios, different types of migrations, and what things to consider as we go through this. Again, any of these, without, I'm not sure if it needs to be said, but really testing is the key at the end of the day before migrating anything over or before rolling it back out in production, is making sure you do your due diligence and test the image or images or VMs before handing it over to the end users. So some of the things to consider for the migration, again, this is starting from the very beginning, strategy, right? A lot of times that tend to get overlooked is the level of detail that you need to look at before doing, in this case, a migration or any type of design or whatnot. So in this case here, one of the strategies or the things that you want to look at is figuring out the number of VMs that you would like to migrate, right? And are they going to be, what type of VMs are these? Will they require their MAC addresses to be retained as they move from, let's say in this case, VMware over to XenServer? The reason for that would be there may be firewall rules attached to the actual VM. So if you move them over during the migration process, you could actually create a generic or generate a new MAC address for that VM, or you could retain the old one. This way, if there was firewall rules attached, it will not be impacted. Some of the other stuff too is another key thing is the actual storage. So if you undersize the storage, again, I think it does not need to be said, but I'll say it anyways, is that you don't want to get through the process and all of a sudden you reach maximum storage and you have to halter your migration because the storage sizing wasn't adequate. And then there may be delays if you can't provision additional storage, right? And the type of storage that it's on. Then you have making sure that you have the proper permissions in XenServer and also in VMware console, so you can perform the migrations. So for example, XenServer, you need to pull them in, and then in VMware, you need to have basically the administrator. So VMware administrator role. Additionally, one side note is that the VM tool sometimes it gets a little confusing. The VM tools itself is not required to be able to migrate over to XenServer. In essence, what you're going to do, and you'll see in the following slides, is that we're going to remove or the XenServer, the actual VMware tools will be removed for obvious reasons. It'll be now hosted in a XenServer environment and not VMware. Additionally, too, one of the things too is that keep in mind that in a migration, if a VM has more than four or more disks attached to it, that cannot be used to be migrated. So you have to find alternative means to be able to migrate that VM over if it has 4 or more disks attached to it. And then again, with the power, with the last thing, which would be making sure the VMs are powered off. And we'll talk about that a little bit, is that in the conversion manager, it will not see the VMs that are powered on. So if it was going to be using conversion manager, you need to power the VM off just so it could see it and do the conversion, and also so users don't access it. So here's a couple of tools, or a few tools, that we actually can leverage within the environment. Personally, I usually use the Xen Conversion Manager, the first one, which is basically, it's an appliance that gets deployed. So it's a pre-packaged appliance that comes with, and you can download it from Citrix site. That basically you just install or import into XenServer in one of the pools. And it's there, you configure it so it actually has access to the network and the VMs and the storage you want. And then that appliance will be doing all the conversions. So it'll be going out to VMware to grab the VM, converting it over, and importing it into XenServer, which is really cool. And again, what Chris mentions, that the original from 8.2, it would, if you have a lot, and I've done projects where we had a few thousand VMs that need to be exported over. The Xen Conversion Manager would only do one VM at a time. So you could queue them up, but it will only convert or start doing that copy over, or the export or import into the environment one at a time. So if you're waiting, if the VM has a large disk attached to it, it could take a long time, say a few hours, to actually convert it over, if the disk is like 150 gigs or not. Whereas the new version in XenServer 8, which again, Chris mentioned, is that it could stream 10 at a time. Now, if you think about it, 10 at a time means at any given time there's 10. So if it finishes one early, it starts another one. So there's always 10 going until the amount of VMs that were selected are completed, which helps a lot. This way, it saves you drastic amount of time. The next one is more of the image portability service. It's more of from an on-prem to cloud kind of migration. And you kind of really look at it as, in hindsight, like a, app layering, Citrix app layering, right? Where there's multiple layers or multiple levels that it does to convert the VMs over. So first it has to basically prep the VM. So take it out, making sure that it can actually function into the other environment. Next is you're uploading it to the other to the XenServer environment. Then it does a configuration, or reconfigures everything in it, so it actually could work. So there's multiple stages, and then you have to publish it. Right? Sounds very similar to it sounds like app layering, right? You got to publish it to the VM and then deploy it out, and that's only used for non-persistent VMs. Whereas the conversion manager is good for dedicated VMs and MCS golden images. The last one here is the import wizard. So the import wizard is a built into Xen Center, where you could just very easily right-click, import a VM, export a VM. This works on basically the disk format of the VM. So let's say it's a VHDX, if it's a VHD, or even a VHD, HDX. So this will go in between. This is mainly provisioning services, right? But it could also be used for dedicated VMs and MCS. But again, this is usually going from on-prem to cloud within the environment. So let's move on to some. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll take this one.
Yep.
Yeah. So now we'll jump into some of the different migration scenarios. Based on the different machine catalog types, there are going to be some slight differences in the processes. All right, so we will start things off with non-persistent MCS provision Citrix VDAs, right? So from a high level, you're going to build a new machine catalog using your existing golden image, and then add those newly provisioned VDAs to your delivery group. And when users log out and back in, they'll get a VDA hosted on XenServer, right, from a high level. So the process should more or less be seamless to your end users. So step one, you're going to uninstall VMware tools on your golden image, and then you're going to import your golden image to XenServer using XCM or the XenCenter import wizard. Then there are some performance flags that you should set by running a command or a few commands. Down at the bottom of the slide, it does show the CTX article where you can find these, and it's also in the XenServer product documentation on importing and exporting VMs. Then you will install the XenServer tools on your golden image. You can do that various ways through XenCenter or scripting or third-party tools. And then now on the Citrix side, from Citrix Studio, whether DAS or CVAD, what you're going to do is you're going to create your hosting connection to XenServer. You're going to create a new machine catalog to provision your new VDAs using your golden image. And then you're going to add those newly provisioned VDAs to your existing delivery group. And again, the process should be seamless to your end users. They log out, they log back in. They don't really know where their applications or desktop are coming from. So I would recommend testing this with a small amount of users first, and then once everything is good, you can eventually decommission your VMware environment.
And one of the things to keep in mind, and you mentioned it, Chris, the performance flags. I want to emphasize on that for a second, for a simple reason is that these flags are associated with when you're updating your, let's say your XenServer, and you're installing a hotfix in XenServer, or your different patches or CUs or whatnot. During these patches, any fixes, any enhancements are done to the templates that are ran within XenServer. So these performance flags, and this includes performance flags, these performance flags themselves, when you're converting a VM over to the environment, were not created from a template that's already in XenServer. So that would mean that these flags are not enabled. So these performance flags you enable, it allows it to boot up faster. Sometimes the VMs may, if you don't have it properly set, that the VMs actually might just not boot up. So it's a simple command that we provided the CTX article for, that you can either do one at a time, or you could do it to a large amount or multiple VMs at a time, which is basically one long command line that enables these flags. The key there for those things, one last thing, is that to have them applied, you cannot, it says reboot the machine, you cannot reboot the machine. You literally have to say shut down, let the VM shut down, disconnect entirely, and it's just basically from that host, then start it back up. By starting it back up, then it will apply those flags that were set from the host. So that is key. So if you reboot it, it does not get applied. No matter how many times you reboot it, you have to shut down the VM and start it back up.
Yep. Sorry, and then another approach to the MCS non-persistent VDAs is you could rebuild your golden image from scratch, right? So it's kind of your choice if you want to start fresh with a brand new golden image, or if you don't want to recreate the work, you can import your existing golden image.
Yep.
Cool. So on to MCS persistent VDAs. So you can think of these, or they might have been referred to in the past as like dedicated machines. And this scenario will require downtime. So from a high level, right, you would put the machine catalog or individual VDAs in maintenance mode, uninstall the VMware tools on the VDAs, shut down the VDAs and import them into XenServer, right, using XCM or the XenCenter import wizard. So this is where the downtime comes in. A side note here is that if you have firewall rules tied to the MAC address of the VDAs, then in the XCM migration process, there's a checkbox, keep MAC addresses, that you're going to want to select. You're going to want to run those same performance flags that Brian talked about on the previous slide. And then in Citrix Studio, whether DAS or CVAD, you're going to create your hosting connection to XenServer if it doesn't already exist, create a new machine catalog, and import the VDAs that you migrated over into that machine catalog, and then add the VDAs to your delivery group. And then from there, your users should be ready to reconnect them. Another side note there, once the VDAs are migrated over to XenServer, right, don't start them on the VMware side, because that can obviously cause some issues.
One of the things is good to mention as well, which I forgot to mention, when we're referring to uninstalling the VM tools. In my past experience with dealing with it, that could be a tricky scenario, right? As we all know, with applications being uninstalled, they don't necessarily uninstall completely or cleanly. So there may be some resin of VMware tools in the registry. I've seen that before. There's scripts that you could write. I've actually written a script or used a script to clean that up in a registry, but it's tricky. It's different versions of VMware all the time. And the reason why I call that out is because that can impact, let's say, for example, after you install, it can prevent you from installing the XenServer tools. Or if you install the XenServer tools, they may not be fully enabled because VMware, there's a resin of VMware tools there that may cause an issue. However, there was an additional update done to the XenServer tools that should prevent that. So I have not tested that yet, but so that may be a moot point. Okay, so moving on here to the non-persistent, PBS non-persistent, there's really two types of scenarios here, options, right? The in-place updates, right? Which is basically taking it, you're taking a PBS image that's used versioning, right? So when you do a version of a VM, instead of doing a full copy of a VM, version of a VM, that would be defined as an in-place update when in PBS currently it's using versioning. And then basically, which entails put the vDisk in private mode of a new version, making the changes, updates, and then enabling it or promoting that to production, and then having the VM boot off of that. The out-of-band updates is basically the latter. So it would be a full image, right? So in this case here, where you have a golden image, where you're not doing versioning, you're not breaking it down, you have a full image disk that you attach to a VM, you boot it up, you make the updates on that disk itself, it's golden image, you shut it down, and then you have PBS itself deploy it out, or you create a you run the wizard within PBS to provision it, and then you can deploy it out as new VMs. So let's go over kind of the scenario / kind of high level steps of doing an in-place update. So this here has the import. It says import the VM disk into XenServer using the XenCenter console. So this is the import. So again, remember we mentioned the tools at the beginning. There's 3 real tools that you can use. The import wizard is built into XenCenter, which is basically you can right click on a VM, or you could go to the menu and select import. So by using the import feature or the import wizard, basically what you're going to do is you're going to select an existing vDisk. Then that vDisk itself that will create a new VM with the new hardware drive attached to it, right? On the actual PBS vDisk. So basically it's going to attach it to a VM, the image disk you're bringing in. So what you're going to do from there on is you're going to install the XenServer tools, right? Again, a lot of these steps are similar to what Chris had mentioned with the MCS. So you'll see a lot of similarities here. There's be slightly different. So you're going to install the VM tools, or sorry, XenServer tools in the environment. This allows it to take advantage of the drivers associated with XenServer and performances. You're going to still run those flags to make sure that it boots correctly and there's no issues, and it gets those flags attached to it that wouldn't have it originally. From there, you're basically just going to create. You're going to log onto the VM itself, and this is where you're prepping the image, right? So in place, you're still going to prep the image for provisioning. So you're going to go in provisioning server. You're going to run the image wizard. So you're going to go into VM and run the imaging wizard. So you're creating an image now based on what you just updated. Once that's completed, you'll upload it to PBS servers as a new vDisk. Then you're going to go making sure in that you're going to create a hosting connection, making sure that it has, first of all, it's connected to the XenServer pool that you want it to deploy off of. And then it will also have, you could go, then from there, you're going to go into the PBS console itself, and then you're going to run, then you're actually going to provision these VMs, number of VMs you want. And it's going to create a machine catalog like typical. So if you're familiar with PBS, those steps are very similar. It's the more you're more concerned with the first 3 steps. And then you're just going to go and then use a new, take that machine catalog you just created, create a delivery group off of it in Studio, and then apply it and assign it to the appropriate users. So the out-of-band, the out-of-band updates. So the out-of-band updates, again, remember what we said a moment ago, which are basically, it's a full VM, right, or a full disk, right? There's no versioning or whatnot. But again, there's a lot of similarities here in the steps. So in this case here, you're going to import the vDisk into XenServer through the import wizard, right? You're going to uninstall the tools, right? That's all the same, the tools. Now, if this is in VMware as well, keep in mind, there's also, you have to uninstall the VMware tools, the image, and then you're also going to install the XenServer tools, XenServer VMware, right? You're going to copy over the golden image to the XenServer, and you're going to use what you could use here now. There's a slightly different option. You can use the conversion manager itself, because the conversion manager will do that, right? Or you could use the import wizard itself, right? So you have a couple of options here. You're not restricted to just one of importing. You're going to install the XenServer tools, like I mentioned a moment ago, the flag. So again, all these similarities, right? It's rinse and repeat, right? It all requires it. Then you're going to log into the VM itself. You're going to do the imaging as well, again, like we did before. You're going to prep that new, let's say, VM with all the updates. You're going to create that into a new vDisk itself. So you're going to upload it, create the new golden image, like it says here, and then again, you're going to repeat the steps of making sure if you already created the hosting connection to that XenServer pool. If not, recreate it. You're going to create then you're going to go back and you're going to run the wizard in PBS to take that new golden image that you have, or the vDisk that you have, and you're going to create it to be able to deploy X number of VMs that you require in the environment. You're going to create a machine catalog either in Studio or in cloud, and then you could deploy it, attach it to a delivery group. Again, all these options here, really, it depends. You may consider it, right? So if you're using old VMs or old images, they may have certain things underlining maybe issues that you're unaware of. So if you create it from scratch and create a new image, again, you know exactly where it stands. Everything's clean, it's fresh. So that'd be an alternative method too, as well. Just create the new golden image because it's clean to go. But make sure you test. So the last one here is the dedicated VMs, right? Dedicated VMs themselves are, again, you're going to be able to do multiple functions. So these dedicated VMs, you're going to really just take the VM itself that's currently in case, let's say, VMware, and you're going to take that whole VM itself and export it over into XenServer. I've used, like I mentioned, I've used the XenServer Convert Manager. It's new and improved now. I really like it. That's the way I typically would use it, but it does require an appliance that you need to install, which is very easy to install. It takes a few minutes to install it. That basically manages those. Or again, you can use the built-in import wizard, depending on how many you need and what you're actually copying in. But to move forward with it, once you take the existing, you can put it into the existing. So once you have those VMs over, you have a machine catalog already. You could import those individual machines or multiple machines within the machine catalog itself. But what you need to do, make sure before doing anything, moving that over, again, you need to have the machine catalog in maintenance mode, so nobody connects to it, right? The VMs themselves should be down, right? So you could export them over, right? Then once they're over, right, you can either, so here's the key, you could either uninstall the VM tools ahead of time, which in case you need to have the VM up to uninstall it, or you can migrate it over, boot it back up because it's only in one location, uninstall the VMware tools, right? And then you move forward, and then bring it over, and then install the XenServer tools themselves. And then again, you're going to rinse and repeat. You're going to go down. Once it's over in the environment and you have XenServer tools installed and VMware tools removed, you're going to make any updates you need to that image. You're going to put the performance flags on her again so they function correctly. And then now you're just going to go and create another hosting connection, create a machine catalog. You could also import it into an existing one, and you import those VMs in it, and then you add it to the new delivery group. So again, all these things are a lot of rinse and repeat. Lastly, we're talking about, I always get asked this question about should we do, or does this require this process for infrastructure servers? Again, it depends, right? That's the Citrix, when I was with Citrix, that's what we always say, because it does really depend on the scenario. A lot of organizations will use VMware as just for the infrastructure. It's there. They really want to get the heavy load of the Citrix workload off of it to XenServer, which is more cost effective, right? But if you want to move it over, well, basically what we're recommending is install new components, right? So for example, in DAS, you got cloud connectors that allows you to communicate with the cloud itself. You would deploy new VMs, install the cloud connector software, and then basically what you're doing is you're going to add it to your site or your cloud. So it makes it aware of that resource location. Excuse me. For delivery groups, delivery controllers, very similar. Instead of you're not going to export them over, it's better just to create new VMs themselves. Install Citrix software for the delivery controller, make it a delivery controller, and then join it to an existing site. Lastly, the same thing for storefront servers, new VMs, install it, software again, the storefront server software, and then add it to the storefront server group. And then lastly, this is a little trickier one, which is the SQL database. There's multiple ways or multiple options to move the database over. Typically, if you're using it for, let's say, CVAD and not in the cloud, there's a lot of considerations. So I highly recommend that you looking at the options that are available and pick one. If that's what you require, pick one that suits your scenario.
So that wraps up most of the content in the webinar. So we covered understanding XenServer, the 3 tools used for migration, and then the multiple migration scenarios, based on the types of machine catalogs or infrastructure that you're trying to move over. So we did mention some resources that we talked about, and after the webinar, we'll send some links over. So we have the interview that I did with Michael Schuster and Todd Shu from Ferroque Systems. We've recently launched XenServer Tech Zone, with the first asset being a reference architecture for running Citrix workloads on XenServer. And then, there's a number of blogs, and within the blogs that we're going to send over, there's the links to the videos. So we have a blog series on the Citrix optimizations that goes much deeper into PVS Accelerator and IntelliCache, what we talked about, and it goes much deeper into the new automated updates process. And then we also, we're turning this kind of webinar into a migration guide, which is going to be an asset coming soon on XenServer Tech Zone.
I wanted to thank you so much, Chris and Brian, for all of the information you were able to share with us today. It was certainly a lot to take in, and I think that this webinar as a recording will be an incredible resource for a lot of people. I'm excited to share all the resources. If you are watching this as a recording, on the bottom of the description, you'll see all those links as well in that location. So thank you very much again, Chris and Brian. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you to our audience for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful day and a